Well, good morning, everyone. I'm glad to see all of you here today. Welcome to the inaugural Career Pathway Signing Day. Our district strategic plan is to prepare all students ready to graduate and succeed in their chosen path. So today we're going to celebrate students that are committing to their chosen path, including our future educators, students that are entering and completing apprenticeship programs, and students that will be going into the military. I would like to introduce our interim superintendent, Dr. Lowe, to bring greetings and recognize our special guest.
Thank you. Good morning. What an exciting day this is. And I just found out it was our inaugural career signing day. So we're just so excited about that. And to let you know how very special we know that it is, we have our board president here, Miss Linda Bryant. And we have board member, Miss Kimberly Dove. And many members of the district and leadership staff and school leaders from throughout the district. So thanks to all who've made today possible. We are very, very excited and can't wait to hear from you. Congratulations on your great achievements, and we just look forward to this exciting event.
Thank you, Dr. Lowe. Next, I would like to introduce Cliff Jones, our Chief Academic Officer.
Thank you. This is an exciting and unique day. The purpose of the Career Pathway Signing Day is to celebrate students who are entering the workforce after graduation. This is a celebration of students who have chosen to maximize their high school opportunities by taking career, technical, and agricultural courses, earn industry certifications, and are committing to becoming successful and financially secure as they begin on their chosen path. Students participating in the Career Pathway Signing Day include apprenticeship students, students in construction and the film pathway, and our FCS students who are committing to entering teaching professions after graduation. Signing Day is a way of recognizing the students' hard work and the value of the career preparation training they've received in Fulton County schools. I applaud your hard work and commend you on your journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Next, I would like to introduce Ms. Samantha Maxey, who will be introducing our keynote speaker. And Samantha is our Director of Community Relations.
Good morning, everyone. Always an exciting day when we're celebrating our students, right? Rodney Sampson is heralded as the leading inclusive innovation, entrepreneurship, and investment ecosystem builder in the world. Throughout his 20-year entrepreneurial career, Sampson has co-founded startup companies that have overcome the odds by collectively raising more than $20 million in angel and venture capital, creating hundreds of new jobs, and generated tens of millions in revenue before acquisition and going public. In 2013, Sampson co-founded Opportunity Hub, or OHUB. From 2015 to 2017, Sampson was a partner at the Tech Square Labs, a tech hub seed stage venture fund and creator of the $100,000 Atlanta Startup Battle. Today, as executive chairman and CEO of OHUB, or Opportunity Hub, and the OHUB Foundation, Sampson is focused on scaling OHUB as the definitive global force of work, opportunity, and wealth. Sampson is also a non-resident senior fellow in the Metropolitan Policy Program at the Brooklyn Institute in Washington, D.C., and a professor of entrepreneurship at Morehouse College right here in our very own Atlanta. Sampson previously served as the first head of diversity at Mark Burnett Productions, executive producer for my favorite show, ABC's Shark Tank, Educated at Tulane University, Pennsylvania State University College of Medicine, and Keller Graduate School of Management, Sampson resides right here in Atlanta with his wife and 6 children. Ladies and gentlemen, I am delighted to introduce our very special guest, Mr. Rodney Sampson.
So Mr. Sampson and I are going to participate in what's called a fireside chat. Where's the coffee? So why don't you, we heard about your extensive bio, but why don't you in your own words tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, good morning. It's good to be here, and good to participate in the first annual Career Signing Day. So kudos to that, to the students and all of the folks who made it happen. So I grew up in Southwest Atlanta. We called it the SWATs, coming along for all the folks who know about that. And let's see, a little contextual history. So I remember, must have been 8 years old, going back a little bit, because I'll be 47 this year. We used to flip through the Sears catalog and circle everything we wanted, knowing that we weren't going to get most of any of that. Most of the adults are like, yep, when they actually sent you the catalog. But one Christmas, I actually circled a computer. And my mom and grandparents actually got me that computer. And I think that was an incredible, point in my life because I started self-teaching myself to program. Now, in those days, when you would program or write code to do smiley faces, you were really good if you could get the ball to move back and forth. If you cut the computer off or it got unplugged, you'd lose your code. And then they came out with these cassette tapes, and so we used to save our code on the cassette tapes. And another cool fact is if you played the cassette tape like on a regular tape recorder, it sounded like Little John scratching. Like, it literally sounds like that. I still have some of those tapes with some of that original code on it. But I went to Collier Heights Elementary School, if that means anything to anyone. I went to Frederick Douglass High School, class of 91. And I'll jump to the future. Well, in undergraduate and in graduate school, I always started a business. Even going back to high school, I used to play the piano and organ, and I used to do it for free, and then the churches started paying me. I was like, oh, people get paid, to do this. And so that was really my first expression, I would say, of my entrepreneurial path. But it started with a skill, right? And so even as I was fortunate enough and somewhat lucky enough to matriculate, through traditional undergraduate, graduate programs, I always would tap into my entrepreneurial self many times to pay my way through, or to have food, or to have a life, right? Well, full circle, in 2000, I started my first tech company. So I went back to my technology roots. And I saw a press release where Mark Cuban, who owns the Dallas Mavericks, sold his business called Broadcast.com for billions of dollars. That's how Mark Cuban actually made his money. He didn't just pop up one day and buy the Dallas Mavericks. And so I said, I had a what if. And usually a lot of entrepreneurs, we have this what if moment. Like, what if I solve this problem? Or what if I could fix this? What if I could sell it? Or what if, you pay me for it, right? That's kind of the makings of an entrepreneurial mindset in terms of solving problems. So I said, what if we could build technology on top of what Mark Cuban had built? And what if we could get churches and schools and content providers to pay for it. And so our company was born. I assembled some co-founders that had gone to Georgia Tech, and we started building software that would allow us to live stream content over the internet. And one of our companies was called streamingfaith.com. So if you've ever watched a church service on the internet, that was because of the technology we built. And we sold that company in 2010. And so I've been through several iterations of identifying a problem, using software in particular, and I will talk a little bit about that, to solve it, and selling it and taking it to market. Now, it hasn't always worked. I've had more entrepreneurial failures than successes, but the two successes I had were actually when another company says, I like what you've built, and we want to buy it from you. And that's called an acquisition, or that's called an exit. And so what I realized, I couldn't contextually communicate it then, so I started writing to be able to, put my mindset to paper. And so I've published 4 books. One of those books is entitled Kingonomics, 12 Innovative Currencies for Transforming Your Future in Life, inspired by Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. And what I came to realize, if you study Dr. King, I know everybody's heard, I have a dream. Actually, the name of that speech was called Normancy No More. It wasn't I have a dream until Aretha said, Martin, tell him about the dream. But it was called Normancy No More, and it was called the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. So it was really an economic conversation. And I started digging into Dr. King's works, particularly Chaos Our Community, Where Do We Go From Here? So this was post-Voting Rights Act, where African Americans and women had gotten the right to vote. This is post the Civil Rights Bill, and now he was focused on economics and poverty and income inequality and the wealth gap, or the racial wealth gap. And so I put forth a thesis that if we could get more people from underrepresented or underestimated, undersponsored, I don't like to use the word underserved because I don't like to define people by negatives, but underestimated communities, if we can get them into the innovation economy or the entrepreneurial economy, that they have a greater chance and opportunity of not having income ceilings and having opportunities that probably they couldn't even imagine. And so for the first time in history, it's the closest thing to equal opportunity that we've ever seen in our country and around the world. You can literally take a computer, learn to program it, build some software, convince somebody to use it and sell it. And you don't even have to build the software. You can be the person selling it. And so you don't have to be the developer, but you can actually be the marketer or the salesperson. Or you could be in finance. You could be in ops. But sell it, build it, scale it. Software is very, very scalable. And it's the closest thing to equal economic opportunity because you can create multi-generational wealth with no reliance on pre-existing wealth. Historically, if you look at the 4 revolutions, and for the students, I tend to talk, it's up to you to write, but if you Google this stuff later, and to the adults in the room as well, there have been 4 revolutions: the first industrial revolution, the second, the third. Now we're entering into what's called the 4th industrial revolution. But for the first time in history, you literally can become economically independent with no reliance on your parents having wealth, your mom, your dad, your aunt or uncles, or what have you. And so that may sound a little wonkish or what have you, but and I get to do that stuff at an organization called the Brookings Institute, which is one of the top think tanks and just economic policy groups on the planet. And what I study there is what's called the intersection of the future of work. And if you don't know what the future of work is, you should really look that up. The 4th industrial revolution and how automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning, quantum computing, augmented reality, virtual reality, all of these things that I'm saying are important because literally 2/3 of the jobs of the future don't exist yet. And the reason they don't exist is because the robots haven't told us what they need. And I know that sounds funny, but literally, if you take every skill that seems mundane, repetitive, or the skills that you encounter every day that like make you mad, like, why do I have to do that? Why do I have to keep turning that? Why do I have to go this way? Why do I have to deal with a customer service person that has an attitude? Trust me, every job on the planet that comes with an attitude is going to be replaced by a robot that's going to smile. It's going to treat you right. Hopefully it won't have bias. We're trying to fight that now. But I think it's very key for you to really understand, like, here you are today, you know, securing the bag, as they say, right? You got a piece of paper that's going to allow you to go into the marketplace and enter the workforce, but realize that you might be going into a career path that some academic somewhere, some economist, some technology founder in Silicon Valley or right here in Atlanta, Georgia, which is becoming one of the top tech hubs in the world, is really trying to figure out how to eliminate your job and let a robot do it and get paid. I'll give you a quick example. We just, through our Atlanta Startup Battle, invested $100,000 in a company that's building autonomous lawn care. Now, I know folks who got lawns are like, really? I don't have to get out there and cut it? I don't have to pay someone? But literally a robot that will do your lawn. And people are excited about it. And I got excited. I mean, we invested, but at the same time, I'm like, what about all the folks who have landscaping companies? Where do they go? What do they do? And so those are some of the things that I think about in terms of, you know, the work that we do, but you should also be thinking about as well, because the reality of it is the majority of people on the planet, I don't care how wealthy you are or unwealthy you are, how educated, astute, arrived you believe you are, if you're not in tune to this, then your livelihood and your job is also in jeopardy as well. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of background.
So you have a group of students to your right that are going to be going to college to be teachers. So what advice do you have for them to prepare our future students for the future?
That's a great question. So who are our future teachers? Kudos. So my advice to you is adapt an attitude or practice of lifelong learning. It's going to be important for you to be able to constantly learn new information, new skills, new techniques, new methodologies in order to teach this next generation. Everyone thinks their generation was special, right? But the generations that are growing up, you know, with iPhones at 2 years old, how are you going to keep their attention and teach them? They question everything. We question stuff too, and the generation did before, but they question it with Google. You know, they question it with all this information at their fingertips. They game to no end, right? They're on Minecraft, they're on Fortnite. I know y'all know about that. And so it's going to be important for you to keep that edge of skills. And so what I suspect you'll be learning are methodologies for teaching in classroom. But keep in mind that today at Stanford, MIT, Harvard, and Georgia Tech here in Atlanta, they have artificial intelligence teachers. 400 students at Georgia Tech signed up for a class to be taught by a computer. The kids love it. And the teachers and professors, particularly the tenured ones, are scared because they're concerned about being replaced by artificial intelligence instructors. So why don't you become a teacher but also become a data scientist? Why don't you learn cloud? Why don't you learn computer programming and software engineering? A part of the reason why a lot of our traditional school systems aren't able to teach the skills of the future is because our instructors don't have those skills. And it's hard for someone from industry to transition into an academic career because of the pay, if I can just be transparent for a minute. Well, you have the opportunity to actually correct that by actually learning these different skills. How are games created? How do I use augmented reality and virtual reality in the classroom? Because you're going to have that in order to simply command the attention of your students, right? It won't always be sending them, to the school police or disciplining them because of their ADHD, because they're growing up with these gaming skills. I watch my 8-year-old. He learns differently. We have to teach him differently because of how gaming has impacted the positive and the negative. And so you're at the ground floor of that. And I would say, don't pursue your education. This is to everyone in a bubble. Don't just learn enough to show up and do a good job at your place of work. Go beyond that and learn everything about the supply chain that's related to your field of study. Or for instance, if you work in a school, understand how schools work. How are schools funded, public and or private? Because all of that impacts how you exist and operate in what we call that supply chain or what have you. And I may be going a little deep, but I really want to give you some practical stuff that you can start doing. Become an avid reader, reading the Financial Times or information, a lot of the technology blogs, follow different news or expert or conferences or trade shows. Don't let your IG feed just be Instagram models, okay? Let your IG feed be full of knowledgeable information that you can then pass along in the respective classroom. And I'll close with this. Whether we want to realize it or not, what the Fourth Industrial Revolution is doing is disrupting education, period. And a lot of our administrators and academicians, they understand how some of this will impact, because if I can go to a 6-month or 12-month software engineering boot camp and get a certificate and have a starting salary of anywhere from $50,000 on the East Coast to $100,000 on the West Coast, I have to determine whether or not I'm going to spend $200,000 to get a computer science degree. So now traditional education is being forced to reinvent itself with online courses, online degrees, self-paced education that will allow people to work and learn. Reminds me of a student who went through one of our coding and entrepreneurship programs, workforce programs, Corey Shaw. Corey, when I met him, was a janitor. He had dropped out of Morehouse because he couldn't pay to continue to go forward. And our selection committee didn't want to put Corey in because they felt like he had these points of failure. But when I looked at his application, I saw someone who was going to school and working. I noticed a drive he had. I noticed he was driving an hour back and forth every day. He was showing that perseverance and that persistence, beyond his resistance. Well, Corey became the star student who graduated out of our course, and now he's a software engineer at Emory University, but because Emory University has a partnership with Morehouse College, he was able to go back and finish his terminal degree for free. And so it doesn't have to be a straight shot, from high school straight into college. It could be getting into a company at the ground floor and finding the right mentor, the right sponsor in that organization, working your way out, and next thing you know, they'll pay for your way to go back to school. So there's a way. It's not just like one linear path, but it's kind of like this, and you got to be open to it being like that. Yeah.
So students, we do have a couple of open IT jobs right now in teaching. So, so if you are interested, I'm just kidding. So I want to talk to the students that are signing because they completed apprenticeship programs. So as they enter into those skilled trades, you've been talking about a sense of the entrepreneurial spirit. And I think that's really important for our skilled trade students, developing that sense of business, entrepreneurship. So what advice do you have for them? And they're right behind the students, the teaching students.
My advice to you is learn how to actually solve problems. There is a curriculum that I want to point you to go look up online called the Lean Startup Methodology. And the Lean Startup Methodology is a rapid, iterative process that allows you to fail fast and pivot. If you have an idea, you test the idea, see if you can solve the problem, and then either you solve it or you don't, or you keep working on it, but you pivot. And it teaches you how to go through what we call ideation, design thinking, and the business model canvas. And if you learn how to do that, you don't have to be an entrepreneur today. You don't have to be your own business owner. But if you apply that methodology, then you'll learn to solve any respective problem using the skills that you have and the skills that you'll learn. They often say that to be an expert at anything, you have to be, in it. You have to have like 10,000 hours of it. You want to become a master in that skill. Not just enough to get the piece of paper and to be proficient on paper, but you want to be the best at what you do. That means you want to practice your craft nonstop, like the way you can maneuver social media, the way you can dance, the way that you can sing. You need to apply that same passion to your skill and then get in the mindset to stack your skills. Having one skill is not enough. You've got to continue to get skills, which is what education is about. Education brings formal education will bring somewhat of a theoretical or historical context to your actual trade or skill. You want to become proficient in the history of your skill. Who was the first in the world to do it? Where did it come from? How did it develop? And that historical context gives you sort of a balanced thinking in and around your skill. It also allows you to develop pride in whatever you're doing. I don't care if you are a welder. Who was the first welder? How did the practice come about? How was welding used in the first industrial revolution? How is welding being disrupted today? I was in York, Pennsylvania about 3 weeks ago looking at a company that I'm a part of, and they are building cobots, robots and humans working together, but they have built robots that weld faster and more efficient than a welder, right? So I want you to keep in your back of your mind that whatever that particular skill is, and I just picked welding as an example, whatever that skill is, think about how that skill is going to be automated in the fourth industrial revolution and the future of work. Think about what makes that skill actually marketable. And when you are actually marketing yourself to get a role or to even get freelance work, we don't talk a lot about what's called the gig economy and how, if you look backwards, a lot of the adults in the room have been on career paths that have allowed them to matriculate over 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Some people in one industry and in one company. I remember when my grandfather retired from Lockheed and had that 40-year watch, right? That was the goal, to get in a company and stay there till you retire. Today, people are working 2 to 3 years at a company, moving up, moving over. And now as companies move towards this gig economy, they're going to force everyone to be a 1099 employee. And so all of y'all gonna be on the marketplace trying to get insurance and get your 401k, right? I think we take a lot of things for granted because it automatically becomes a part of our employee package. But what happens when they say, I'll pay you double if you do this as a 1099, or I'll pay you 20% more if you do this as a 1099, then you're gonna have to think about being really a business owner. How do you structure that legally? What are the tax implications related to being self-employed or having a company? What happens as a self-employed freelancer? How do you go and get health insurance and life insurance and investment products? So those are all of the things that you have to think about, not just, you know, I need a car, a place to stay, I gotta eat, I hang out on the weekends, and I go to my job. Like, that's such a mundane way of life. You wanna be intentional about learning as much as you can about everything that is related to your respective skill. And if you do that, that will lead you to other opportunities. That will lead you to companies who will say, well, you have X skill, but you have these soft skills, and you have these other abilities. We'll teach you this. And that's where you want to be, is when companies want you so bad that they'll teach you and pay for you to get the next set of skills.
So in closing, you've mentioned several times about failing forward, right? So can you give us an example that you would be comfortable sharing with us about an experience where you have failed forward? And I think that everybody in this room could use, we all encounter experiences where we fail forward. So can you share with us some of your experiences, and what did you learn from that?
I wish, you know, and I have this conversation over at Morehouse and other places a lot, is that all of the case studies are usually about people's successes. And then if there is a negative case study, it's like Enron. It's something so extreme, you know. It's like success or fraud. You know, there's like no in between. A few years ago, I was giving a presentation at the Securities and Exchange Commission to the then chairman under the last administration. And I was talking about, you know, companies who've raised capital, meaning people have given us money. When you invest in a startup, so when someone invests in your small business, it is the riskiest type of investment that you will ever make. You may not know this, but 50% of our nation's net new jobs are actually being created by startups, though. 20 years ago, no one knew that Google would hire hundreds of thousands of people. No one even knew what Google was. Why would people want to go to a computer screen and search, right? Uber is going public this week. You know, I know some Black and Latinx folks at Uber that are about to secure the bag, like big time, because they were early employees of Uber. Lyft, same thing, you know, GitHub. This particular instance, so my point at the SEC was failure is not fraud. Just because you fail does not make you a fraud. The majority of people who go down in history, the majority of people who become independently wealthy and don't play it safe and disrupt the status quo of everything, live in isolation because people think they're crazy. When I first, you know, told my family I'm leaving my last semester in medical school to go start a tech company, they thought I was crazy. And what I realized is they weren't really upset about the career path I chosen. They were concerned about what their peers would think of them, because they were looking forward to getting status off of my work. They wanted to live vicariously through my certificate or my degree or my MD or my MBA. And so what I learned was they had absolutely no clue what I was doing. You know, my grandfather, my late grandfather, he was saying, I don't know what the boy does, but he's never asking me for money. So it works for me, right? Mom didn't know what I did until I bought her a mink coat home, and she didn't care after that either, right? Whatever you keep doing that, baby, just do that. But about failure, so I started, this was my third tech company, and we were early in the mobile space. So now, everyone texts back and forth. You can buy through SMS. That mobile commerce space is like literally the future. Like if you're a retail business, don't have a mobile site, like you're old, right? Every major retailer has mobile, but texting was new for commerce. And so we had a growing business where we had like a mobile subscription service where we would partner with different authors, experts, and influencers. And for $4.99 a month, you could get a daily text message from John Maxwell, who actually talks about failing forward. You could get these motivational quotes. And we were growing. And then a federal policy, an FCC policy change. And that's why it's also important for you to understand how government works and how policy works. You may want to avoid politics, but politics is the precedence for so much. How schools get funded. I mean, these folks up here, they're deep in politics, right? Because they know that funding comes from the feds down to the state, down to your school. You got to understand how legislation works. So this particular policy shifted the industry and allowed the carriers to charge 50% fee or tariff on all commerce that came through, their particular, system, Sprint. So my business, because you run revenue minus expenses, and then you get down into EBITDA, then you get all the way down to net income. That's earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. So EBITDA is something you'll learn in business. But having our revenue cut by 50% slashed our burn rate. And the burn rate is how much money you're spending every month, right? The school system has a burn rate. They know what they're spending and what they can't spend and how much they can actually. So companies have a burn rate. If you lose 50% of your revenue, guess what? Now you got to have the hard conversations with people. You got to come in and say, I got to let you go in a week. That's tough when you got to tell someone that you can't pay them, right? And literally watching your company go like this to the point where you have to close the doors. And it can weigh on you if you've never had that type of experience. And so, going through that process makes you stronger, because if you can navigate through the worst of times, then everything else is a breeze. Most people build their lives and mindset on navigating through all of the positive trajectories of their life, and not through the failures that come, even if they're small or even if they are large. And so that was, we were trying to lobby the federal government and go up against the 800-pound gorilla, and we just didn't have enough resources. We didn't have enough money, so the business ultimately failed. And it's nothing like having to have a conversation with your investors and your partners, hey, I wanted to let you know that I lost your money, right? And then I came to find out that most investors actually expect to lose their money. They just want you to keep them updated. And so I learned an incredible lesson in communication. Investors that invest, like when you watch the show Shark Tank, when Damon John or Mark, when they say, I'm going to invest $50,000, $100,000 in your business for 10% of the company, it's a high-risk investment. Anything could change. A competitor could get in the market. Laws could change. You lose your top salesperson. Anything could happen, right? And keeping that constant communication. So now what we do with investors, whether it be in our company or in a venture fund, or even what I expect from people we invest in, it doesn't have to be a long white paper, or update. I don't need to see your monthly financials and your P&L. I just need a paragraph. Tell me what happened, the good, the bad, and the ugly. This month we had 50 meetings pitching our company, and 10 people said yes, but only one actually closed. Maybe I can help you, right? Maybe I can help you through your sales process. So that communication is what I started, and then it becomes conversational, whether it's good news and bad news. You know how you talk over the the water cooler. If you can develop that level of communication with people you have a fiduciary with, you start to build trust. And what I've learned, whether it's a job, a promotion, or position, or company, there are 4 levels to it. One is your technical ability. Most people want to determine what type of technical acumen do you bring? What type of skills do you have? Can you actually do the work? The next thing is, are you a team player? Can you work on this team? You know, it's not always about culture fit, because sometimes we don't fit into cultures, but can you navigate culture and create relationships and help be a part of that team? The next thing is traction. If I give you that job, give you that opportunity, can I see traction in your process? You know, once we elect you to this board, will I see traction in terms of you hitting the ground running and executing on, what we agreed upon? But the most important thing of why people will give you a shot and why people will invest in you, whether it's their time, talent, or treasure, is trust. People want to know that they can trust you to say and do, at a minimum, no more or less of what you say you'll do. If you say it out of your mouth, do it. And if it falters, tell them why it happens. And start that communication. So the same level of communication you should have in your personal relationships are the same one that you should have in your professional relationships. What I've learned about successful people and people who have success, and success is measured differently, or significance or what have you, is that they have a keen ability to discern and listen and really see through your BS. And so a lot of times, less is more, just becoming an avid listener and being able to build that trust with people, that good eye contact, making sure that your online profiles match who you say you are on paper, because employers now go look at your social media. So if you got some sketchy stuff on there, make them private or scrub all that foolishness. I don't want to see you turning up. When I go look at your social profiles, I don't want to see how lit you can be. I don't want to see how misogynistic you're being. I want to see a professional person. So maybe you need a LinkedIn profile, right? And if you're technical, maybe you need a GitHub profile. But just make sure you can develop trust, period. And I think that'll take you a long way.
I want to thank you so much for our fireside chat. Next time I will bring the coffee. And I appreciate your words of wisdom for not only our future graduates that are graduating from our high schools in a couple weeks, but also all the adults that we have in the room too. I really appreciate what you brought today. So thank you so much. All right, so let's start our signing ceremony. Yay. All right. So I would like to ask the Teaching as a Profession students from the Fulton Schools College and Career Academy and Milton High School to come on up. And I would also like to ask Mr. Ron Wade, our Chief Officer of Talent, to come up as well.
Good morning. I was a career changer, and 25 years ago, I thoughtfully and maybe unwillingly fell into teaching, and have found it to date to be the most rewarding profession and work that I've done. And I know Mr. Sampson really gave you guys a realistic view of the modern state of work in the economy. And I'm still trying to figure out what get the bag means. I'm gonna go and ask my high schooler when I get home. Grab the bag. But fundamentally, it's gonna go back to some of the fundamentals. And sometimes it's you know, in the midst of all the things that are evolving in terms of how we work, play, and exist, we still have to go back to what our grandma and grandpa taught us. And I think educators have the ability to be some of the most powerful influencers in our modern time, and continue to be. Because I think teaching ultimately is about influencing. And although the content and how we teach will vary, your impact and your ability to influence young people will always be steady. And so certainly make sure that your profiles are where they need to be, that you are ready to face the challenge of teaching other people's kids. But fundamentally, I'm gonna go back to what my grandpa taught me. The right profile you need, but ultimately you need to be a good person. You need to be a good person so that other people's children will believe that you actually have something to impart upon them, that you're credible, that you have the ability to really not only care for them, but care for who they will be. And so fundamentally, in the midst of all the change that comes in our work, how we live, rely on being good. I think that's powerful. We certainly appreciate the fact that your interest in education began in Fulton County. We want to cultivate that and really be a part of that as you matriculate to your career. And so we want to guarantee you an opportunity to come back and work for Fulton County once you have finished your career. So Yolanda's gonna talk about a way that we're gonna stay connected with you so that when you're ready, Fulton County will be ready to offer you this job. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. I just want to tell you a little bit about these students and what they've been doing. So the Teaching as a Profession pathway prepares students for future positions in the field of education. They have been studying and applying using current technologies, effective teaching and learning strategies, and creating an effective learning environment and instructional opportunities for diverse learners and students with special needs, and planning instruction based on subject matter, students, community, and curriculum standards. So before we sign, I did want to give you students a chance to kind of go down the row and introduce yourself, tell us where you're going to school, and tell us what you want to teach. All right, so we can start at the very end. So some of you are gonna have to practice your teaching voice. There you go.
Hi, my name is Karina Perez. I'm going to Georgia State College to major in early childhood education.
Hi, I'm Kiera Thornton. I'll be attending Albany University to major in early childhood education.
Hi, my name is Shanae Wilkins, and I want to attend Bethune-Cookman to major in English to become a high school teacher.
Hi, my name is Brittany Bailey, and I'm going to Georgia Gwinnett State College, and I want to major in early childhood.
Good morning. My name is Nia Hunter. I'm going to Georgia State University, and I want to major in early childhood education.
Hi, I'm Molly. I'm going to Milligan College, and I'm going to major in speech pathology, specifically for children.
Hi, my name is Fatima Ahmed, and I'm going to Georgia State University, and I'll be majoring in early childhood education.
So thank you, students, for committing to the teaching profession. We look forward to having you back at our schools. I'm going to leave this slide up for a second because I realize you guys didn't bring your phones up here. But what I want you to do is when you get back to your seats, take out your phones and then enter in this number and text a message, Future FC, Future Fulton County Teachers. So that way, that's a group message. That way we can keep in touch with you as you go along in your careers, okay? So it's a Remind 101 group. And we're going to be connecting with you as you go along your 4-year path to getting your teaching certification so we can make sure to welcome you back to Fulton County Schools as teachers. All right? So please go ahead and sign your certificates. Yes, it's that one. Oh. And you have received 2 certificates today that you can take back with you, a letter of intent and your signing certificate, and that is both for you to keep. So thank you and congratulations, students. And next, we're going to welcome our students from the Banneker Pre-Apprenticeship Program and the Roswell CTAE students to come up. So before we get started on their signing ceremony, I would like to introduce Miss Lydia Glaze from the AFL-CIO Community Services and United Way of Greater Atlanta, and Randy Beal from the Atlanta and North Georgia Building and Construction Trades Council to tell you more about the pre-apprenticeship program and present them with their certificates of completion.
Thank you, Ms. Bell, and good morning to everyone. Great to see our great leader, Linda. She's been with us for so long. I'm honored to see you this morning. And all those are in the class in this room. But the students are, while we're here and while we started the program, it's called the Bridge Program. And I'm 8 months new with United Way. And for those, many of you know me, I came out of education and former auditor with IRS, and then I was with the local Fairburn City Council, and then as an elected. And so when I stepped away from that, I thought, what do I want to do to really have a legacy that's more impactful than what I've ever done? And so having worked with students, I knew for sure that what I wanted to do was go back and make sure students from communities that we call underserved have access to what I think is the greatest mechanism for building skilled trades, and that is with labor unions and apprenticeship programs. And so as a partner with United Way, we are a 75-year partner with AFL-CIO, and that's nationally. And we had the ability now to connect the trades, the skilled trades, the apprenticeship programs back to high schools. And so that's what we did. We came up with this bridge program. We pitched it here. Can't thank Ms. Walters and Ms. Bell enough for helping us with connecting this program. And then Banneker and the Career Academy, you guys stepped up and said, let's give you guys a try. And so we went directly to the building trades. That's not my profession. That's not my expertise. So you go and you partner. So we went directly to the building trades and partnered with Randy Beal, who represents the North American Building Trades Union. He's their business manager. He's over all of the apprenticeship programs that come out of AFL-CIO as far as being their business manager. So I went right to him and say, hey, would you like to help put together pipelines through local high schools to connect to the skilled trades so our kids can move from high school to a earn while you learn position. We used to call it OJT, on the job training. Now it's a better name, apprenticeship programs. And so with that program, these young men and women have had 20 hours of training with Randy, who's an expert in that area, to make sure they were introduced to labor and they were introduced to the trades and to each one of the apprenticeship programs. Now that couldn't have been done without the local schools, and Banneker has been phenomenal. And I want to just give kudos to Ms. Dorothy Walter, who was with us every classroom and every step of the way. We could not have done it without you, and I think The students, we need to just give you kudos this morning to say your work was impeccable. Your commitment and passion is it's just indescribable. So phase one, we're finished. We're finished. These kids finished that phase one. I'm going to let Randy, Bill tell you about phase one, and then I'll come back and we'll sign.
Thank you, Lydia. Appreciate it. My name is Randy Bill. I'm the business manager, FST, of the Atlanta North Georgia Building Trades. I represent 14 different affiliates that are made up from the international unions that we represent. If it's in construction, there is a union that does that work, so we represent them. It was a joy to come and spend Saturdays with these young people. We had a good time. I had a good time. I hope y'all had a good time. And it was a lot of fun. And then we went out after the third or the second weekend. We went out on the third Saturday to the Union Electrical Apprenticeship Program, and Russell Smith toured us around that facility. It was a tremendous opportunity for them to see what they may be entering into if they choose that particular profession. It was great, and I'm a 31-year member of the Sheet Metal Workers, so I stand before you as a product of union apprenticeship. And as I told all of them, anyone can achieve where I have come to. They can be the next business manager of the building trades. Just let me retire first, and that'll be great. But I do want to say that what Mr. Sampson said is so true. Even in the construction industry, things are changing. And I remember just a few weeks ago, I saw it back in 2015, but there was, back in 2014, it would take 14.9 months to build a 20-story building. And China in 2015 built a 57-story building in 19 days. Now, they did a lot of modular work, and this was the erection of that product in 19 days. So things are changing, even for our industry. We hope that no one will ever figure out how to get a robot to climb a ladder and put in our material, but one day that may happen, right? Let's hold it off for a little while. But it was a pleasure to meet with these students. I want to tell you about one other thing that we're working in partnership with the United Way. And one of the biggest hurdles that we find when we're in the underrepresented community is transportation is always an issue. And it's been a burden of mine since I've been in, since 16, to try to find a way to connect people with vehicles and get them to a job. So we're developing a transportation to the trades with the United Way, and we'll be out seeking ways to get car dealerships to get vehicles into the hands of people who want to work. That's the key. And so we're doing that. I ask for your prayers and assistance in that endeavor, because we're going to need it. I believe that they will sign on and do it, especially when we see people like this, that young people that want to do what's right and they want to pursue a career. We need to find a way to help them. So thank you.
Thank you, Randy. I do want to say that we have a great opportunity this morning to talk about one of our students from Fulton County. His name is Jamal Thornton. He was a CBI student, graduated from Banneker High School 2018. He came to us through Ms. Walter and asked if he could be in the program. Well, this program was just for second semester seniors. He had already graduated a year out and was still coming back to his high school to find opportunities in the pathway than where he was. And so Ms. Dorothy called me and I said, absolutely, let him in. And he never missed a class. He worked during the week at a warehouse, and he still came to work with us on Saturdays. He said, I really want to be in the electrical trades. When we went out to the school to actually tour the apprenticeship program, on the spot, the training director noticed him. They talked by the side, and then he said, bring him on Tuesday. I will put him to work. He is not here today because he started his job with England and Stubbs, and he is working at Kennestone Hospital now with the electrical workers, helping to erect that wing of the hospital. And so we're not just talking about signing, we're talking about putting kids to work and putting them in an earn while you learn, because we do not want these kids to end up with debt that they cannot pay back, with jobs that they cannot get. And so this is why we believe so strongly in this program. And so I'm going to call out the names of our students. They're also going to get their certificate for completing the program. We do have a phase 2, and we do not leave our kids for an entire year. So phase 2 is they start right after they graduate. They will come to a week of soft skills and application process. So each of them will apply to 3 different apprenticeship programs of their choosing. We will assist in all of their process. When they actually start to work, we will assist and make sure that they have transportation to get there. And we will begin to make sure that barriers that will cause them maybe to leave work, that we work on those barriers while they're there so that we can keep them inside of the jobs that they actually will go into in year 1. So I want you to know that we will be with them the entire year. We will keep data. We will stay in touch with Ms. Bell's office and Ms. Walters' office to make sure that you know that our kids from this program are succeeding. And when they come to a barrier, we're there to help them overcome that barrier. So let's call out these wonderful names of these great students.
We just gave them to them on their
Okay. All right. So Bianca Hunter, would you stand up? She has completed her program. She has her certificate. Montavious Martin, would you stand up? He's not here. Jaquavian Taylor, please stand up. You've completed your program. Look at your certificate. Hold it up if you would. Is Bezeda here? Please stand up. She completed her Construction 101 program. Samarcia Berry, are you here? Thank you. Kentrell Kitchens, is he with us? Jaquan Kane. And then Jamal Thornton is at work. And this is our group of construction and building trades men and women who are aspiring to go into the marketplace and through apprenticeship programs.
Thank you, Ms. Glaze. Thank you, Mr. Beal. Next, I want to call Aaron Walsh from Allison Smith Company. There you go. So Aaron is with one of our students from Roswell High School who is also signing with Allison Smith and completed the construction pathway. So he has a separate letter of intent, right, for that student. So why don't you tell us your name? I'm putting you on the spot. And then the career path that you're going into.
My name is Brian Enriquez, and I'm going into the electrical field.
Okay. You want to tell us a little bit more about?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, he'll be taking on electrical apprenticeship program. So it's a great way to save money and earn while you learn, like we've said. So he'll be joining with, similar to England Stubbs, which is one of the other students who's working. Allison Smith is an electrical contractor with jobs throughout the United States. And he'll be an Apprentice 1, CW1, here in May, and be on the job by the end of the month. You want to put the hat on?
And last but definitely not least, we have 2 students from Roswell High School that have completed the government and public administration pathway that are going straight into the military. So why don't you tell them your name and what you're going to be doing?
My name is Tyler Arama. I'm going into the U.S. Army active duty, and I'm going to be an avionic specialist.
I'm Jose Alvarez, and I enlisted in the Army National Guard, and I'll be going in as an indirect fire infantryman.
All right, congratulations, students. Thank you for committing to your career path. Please go ahead and sign. Oh, we need to pass them down. too fast for me. So let's give these students one more round of applause. As you can see today, I feel like was a very special and meaningful day. And there's only room to grow. So I know that people that are in the audience, each of you has a copy of our CTE catalog. We would like to open up this opportunity for more of our students in more career pathways. So take a look at what we're teaching in our schools and think about how you can engage with our students. How can we open up more opportunities for students to begin accumulating activities that will cause them to stand out and be a resume differentiator? So thank you for coming today. We have refreshments outside provided by the Fulton Schools College and Career Academy. And again, congratulations, students, and we look forward to hearing about your successes.